What if your winter wardrobe could look like you walked straight out of a fantasy novel? Today, I'm transforming fabric and fur into a warm winter tabard and a dramatic cape that's perfect for a LARP, Ren Faire, or just curling up by the fire, pretending you're in a medieval castle. Join me for a cozy sew-along session and stick around to the end to see the epic reveal that brings this winter fantasy to life. Today, I'm using a pattern I bought on Etsy, which I actually love this pattern so much that I ended up making a summer version of this tabard too. Leave a comment if you want to see a video of that. Anyway, before cutting into my fabric, I made a mock-up to check the sizing, as I will be using this tabard as a sort of a coat on top of multiple other layers, so I need it to be a bit bigger to not interfere with my movement. I also made some adjustments to the pattern, so I can have a lace up front, and extended the side panels so they can meet and create a sort of a skirt that's open in the front and the back. So it's not a skirt, but anyway, I just wanted the sides to be closed up. Then I cut all the patterns out twice, once from the grey fashion fabric and the black one that I used as a lining. Both of these are heavy wool blend upholstery fabrics that I chose for their warmth and their texture. My very obvious inspiration for this project are Michelle Clapton's designs for the Northerners in the Game of Thrones series. Their clothes are usually unornamented, their detail coming from the unique textured fabrics and the layers upon layers of garments worn. Although these loosely woven fabrics have a very cool texture, they also tend to warp quite a bit. So I added fusible interfacing to the front opening where the lacing holes will be for some extra stability. The only ornamentation I allowed myself is a small pop of color in form of a decorative piping that I originally intended to take around the whole front opening and the neckline. At the end, I actually changed my mind on that a bit, but you will see. I sewed the bias cut strips together and ironed them in half. Then I sewed all the darts and seams together and ironed those flat too. I made the lining and the fashion fabric part simultaneously. Once both were assembled, I added the decorative piping. Is it still called piping if it's flat? Or is it just the bias tape then? Anyway, I added the you-know-what to the front opening facing inwards and decided to leave the neckline out. Then came the painstaking task of pinning the lining right sides together with the main fabric, matching each seam, corner and edge to each other. And then the even more painful process of sewing it all along the edges. This part needs to be super precise. Otherwise, the fabrics might end up pulling on each other in weird ways, and that is why I hate lining things. I turned it inside out through the armholes, cutting corners and trimming bulky seams as I went. Trying it on, I had to realize that even though unlined, the grey fabric has a really nice drape, the two of them together make a surprisingly strong structure. which in this case makes a ridiculous bell shape that won't be smoothed down. And I can't even get to my pockets. So all that effort I spent on altering the original pattern was for naught, as I had to backtrack and revert it to the original design by sewing up a V shape on the sides and cutting the middle chunk out. Much better. And I have access to my pockets too. After a good press, it's time to make the shoulder flappies. I have no clue what are they called. I sewed the lining and the fabric together and cut the excess seam allowance. Before flipping it inside out, I realized that I should have ironed some interfacing onto it before sewing. But no matter, I'll just do it now and no one will know. Right? I pasted them in place because it will be sewed on together with the sleeves, so for now it will just have to stay there until I figure that out. But before that, I need to make the closure. I used my awl to poke symmetrical holes on each side of the front opening, then I proceeded to spend the next 60 years embroidering lacing holes. I have this grey cord in my stash that would be perfect. But of course it's too short. And now came the time to finally figure out the sleeves. So I made a quick mock-up and I was too lazy to relace the front? What? The whole point of making the lacing holes first was to accurately test the arm mobility with the sleeves on. I guess I was too busy playing with a cat. Anyway, the sleeves functioned well enough. They just needed to be a bit longer. So I cut them twice from each fabric, making the lining fabric just a tad shorter. You'll see why this is important in just a sec. First, we sew the lining and the grey fabric together, right sides facing at the cuffs. Then you open it up and fold the whole thing half lengthwise, and sew all along that seam. A very important step before anything else is to press this long seam flat. Now we can turn it inside out, and here's where the lining being shorter comes in handy. The fashion fabric will turn inwards, and if everything goes well, you won't see the lining at all. Now we just set the sleeves in, matching the underarm seam to the bodice's side seam. I sewed the fashion fabrics together by machine. The lining fabric I folded back and sewed down by hand. And we're done! But no adventurer goes anywhere without their cozy wool cape in the winter. So let's make a Night's Watch style cape. It's the simplest thing in the world, so we can breeze right through it. First, you're gonna hand sew 3 parallel gathering stitches on the longer end of your fabric. Pull on these gathering threads until your fabric measures around 130 centimeters. If your shoulders are wider, you might need this measurement to be even longer than that. In this case, I would also suggest to use a longer fabric so your gathers can be fuller. Just to make sure that the cartridge pleats don't go anywhere, I'm hand stitching a sturdy cross-grain ribbon to the interior of it. Then, using some temporary ribbons, attach your cape to a willing assistant. May it be a dummy or your friend, sister or mom. Just make sure that they are the same height as you because it's time to level the hem. I set my lovely assistant, Davina, to the same height as I, and I'm cutting the cape where it hits the ground. I don't want to trip on this cape, so I'm creating a thick 3-inch hem by marking a line 6 inches away from the bottom edge. I cross-stitched or catch-stitched the hem by hand. Then I sewed each end of the leather strap to each end of the cape. I kinda lost the footage on this, but trust me, it happened. Here's the proof. Then you attach the buckle to one of the straps. And punch holes on the other one. Oh, also, I may have put a bit of embroidery on my cape, but that is to be expected at this point, right? To finish the front opening and hide the raw edges, I added a 3-inch wide strap from the same fabric as the piping on the tabard. I sewed it on with a sewing machine, folded it back and tacked it down by hand. And now for the fur. This part is completely optional, but to be close to my Night's Watch inspirations and the awesome warmth it provides, I bought a vintage rug off Facebook Marketplace. To be able to put your head through it, you will need to cut a semicircle shape out of it. And don't worry, I'm saving every single scrap of this and it will get used in another project. So I wanted this fur cape to be detachable in case I want to use this cape in the summer or something, or if I want to use the fur cape just separately. So the way I did this is I made little fabric loops that I hand sewed onto the cross grain ribbon. I have 3 of these, one in the beginning, or well, each at the beginning and one in the middle and the back. And for the fur I just made 2 little holes and fed a leather cord through it. And this way I can just tie it through this loop, and there you go.